the Jake Giffin Podcast.
This is the intro from Disney magic to managing adult-sized toddlers in corporate boardrooms. Yogi Mueller has been cutting through soft leadership with a sharp truth. And today, sir, you tell us how you do it.
Hey,
Welcome.
Jake, great to be on, brother. I love that intro. It would be really, really funny if it wasn't true. I've seen a lot.
Yeah. When were you at Disney?
I was at Disney from the late 1990s through, I would think, 2008, 2009. That was when they went through a big riff, and I left just prior to that and went into education at that time. Just try something different. But I missed hospitality, so I ended up back in hospitality about 3 years later.
Now you've been a comedian.
I have.
Or you're currently a comedian? Are you a working comedian?
My wife says I'm still the funniest person she knows.
Thank God
I am not. I throughout college and after college, I was in a musical comedy duo, and we toured called the Fuchsia Boys, of all things. Toured around Chicago, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, that area, and enjoyed a lot. My claim to fame is I had one of my original songs played on the Dr. Demento Show.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so it's called Hepatitis Cafe. So we had the opportunity, being a musical comedy, we would do bars and nightclubs, but we would also, do comedy shows. And that was probably one of the reasons why I got into training as a career. I never considered it, but I realized I had a captive audience in a classroom. So I'm like, oh, I can entertain and educate at the same time. So I think it was the genesis of where I ended up today.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, that's interesting. Dr. Demento, man. Wow. That's memories right there. I don't even remember what channel he was on. He was on some kind of random channel that didn't come AM radio, if I remember right.
Yeah, like late Sunday nights or whatever it was. And
yeah,
that was when everything was analog back then, right? So I wrote him a letter and I sent him a cassette tape, and I didn't hear from him for about 5 months. And then all of a sudden I get this package in the mail from him, and it's a signed picture. It's the discography of the show. I got 2 CDs with the entire show on it. And he had a personalized intro for the song that was played. And he was played internationally. He was playing on Armed Forces Radio. And so who knows who picked up that song back then. It didn't make me any money, but it's a claim to fame that I kind of have for that.
Oh my gosh, man. Yeah, that was when I heard that there's a song called Nine Coronas. 9 Coronas. Dun, 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 dun. It was a play on, it was kind of like it wasn't Weird Al, but it was a Weird Al kind of shtick.
Oh, yeah.
All those kind of weird random songs.
And for a guy that was writing comedy music to be on a show that launched careers like Weird Al Yankovic was like, it was kind of geeking out about that whole thing.
Man, so now you went from comedy, Disney, taught in classrooms, hospitality. You spent 3 years. Are you still at Blue Green?
No, a funny story. The reason I am a solopreneur right now is I like to tell people that I was freed up to pursue my entrepreneurial dreams due to a corporate acquisition a year ago.
Yeah, perfect.
I've been in hospitality off and on for about 25 plus years in different iterations, and it was good. I think it was cathartic for me to have somebody saying, okay, now you need to do something else, because I'd always thought about thinking about it, but sometimes you need that kick in the rear end. And it was a kick. And so the last whole year has been amazing growth. And you were talking about your audience is many of them are entrepreneurs, and I went through all the growing pains, still going through all the growing pains that one does when you hang up a shingle.
Yeah. Well, I've been an entrepreneur now we started the home services business almost 10 years ago. Before that, I was in business development, sales management, things like that. So yeah, you're always learning, right? It's leadership. It's human psychology. Humans change. There's different types of humans. It's an ever evolving thing. And entrepreneurship, is that a word? Entrepreneurship? whatever. When you want to run your own business and do your own thing, that's a big step.
Hey, Jake, real quick, you're cutting in and out. Are you seeing me? Okay, but you're freezing and I'm not hearing any audio.
Okay, yeah, I'm seeing you fine.
Are you? Okay.
Yeah.
Just all right. So if you see an odd reaction with me, it's because I you froze. So sorry about that.
There does seem to be a little bit of a latency between us. It's as I see your video, but I don't know if that's me or if that's
We'll
I'm
keep
a
going.
I'm
No,
a home services coach psychology kind of guy. I'm not a tech guy.
it's okay. Well, I wanted to ask you about that because
Yeah.
one of the things that I joke that I've been wanting to fire my chief marketing officer for the last year,
Hmm.
and because and you came from a sales background, so how how did you apply effectively the background you had in sales to your own business, and what recommendations do you have for those that didn't live in the sales world necessarily, and how do you then now sell you because you're the product in a consultancy, let's say?
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I'm fortunate in that way because I came from a sales background and because I built sales teams and I've kind of worked with a lot of people who were either underperforming or barely performing, and most of those. So I kind of know a lot of the reasons that they don't perform the way that they need to. So that's a benefit that I have. And going from selling home services to coaching or consulting is pretty easy transformation. If you didn't come from a sales background, you can learn to sell. I mean, I teach people how to sell all the time. Or if you don't really want to do that, then hire a salesperson and pay them
Fair.
and then pay them commission.
It's kind of that catch 22, right? I gotta have initial sales in order to pay a salesman, and then so it's that back and forth. But that's probably one of the biggest learnings I had, I think, as a solopreneur is when you operate in somebody else's construct. The last position I was VP of talent development, and then all of a sudden you have to create the construct you operate in, and you're the product in some extent. Obviously the services that provided the product, but you're attached to it more than you would be, let's say, in an organization for 13 years.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it's been cathartic, but it's been fun, and I'm glad.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, there's a lot of people who will start their own businesses, whether it's home services, coaching, or whatever, who came from more of an execution background, to getting work done. And they thought, well, look, if this jerk can run a business and be successful, I'm sure I could do it. And then they go off and they, like you said, they put their placard up and they do their thing. And the fact is, marketing and sales is what companies are built on.
Right.
And if you, and they learn that a lot of people learn that the hard way. So it's it is what it is, but it's something you could, I mean, it's something you either outsource or you learn. And in the consulting, like what you're doing right now with craft leadership, I mean, that's not a hard sell. So it's, if you ever need any help with that, I can definitely help you with that. But
Appreciate that.
so I mean, right now you said I think it was on the Bunch AI blog, you said, I see potential in using AI to extend the reach of leadership development, craft more personalized learning paths.
Yeah. So AI is, and full disclosure, Jake, I was on stage about 3 years ago,
Mhm.
and it was a panel on AI, and I got up there and I said I might be the dinosaur on stage, but I'm not a big fan of AI. Well,
Mhm.
I'd say within 6 months after being on stage and learning, it is indispensable in what I do on a day-to-day basis, and leveraging that for learning.
Mhm.
And I have a friend that's running a company called Pete, and they have a product that if you had a manual, you just upload the manual, and in a matter of minutes, you have an entire training program, the slides, the narration, the
Yeah.
video, the handouts, and you're like,
So good.
man, what? I mean, the scope of what it can do is absolutely insane,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so in our world, we have to get on top of that. We need to learn how to leverage it. We need to learn how to use it to our advantage. And then we also need to make sure that we are training teams to appreciate what it is, because it's coming. And if you don't learn to run with the ball, it's going to run you over.
Yeah.
And in terms of the learning paths, I think, oh, absolutely. Could it, if you went somewhere and you said, hey, I want to learn this, will it lay out an absolute path for you and it will provide you the education you need? 100%. But I also want to make sure, at least when I talk to my clients, is that we balance that. And especially with this concept of mentorship that I've been talking about and evangelizing with the book launch, is, you can go to AI, you can go to Google, you can go to Copilot, and you can type in any question you want, and it's going to give you an answer.
Sure.
It's going to tell you what you want to hear, but it's not giving you the information because they think you are worthwhile. It's not giving you the information because they believe in your potential. They're not giving you the information because it's a what's the word I'm looking at, like a sanctified passing of knowledge, information, and experience onto somebody younger, less experienced. And I think that key right there, that humanity key, is something that we cannot lose. And we always need to make sure that it's balanced.
Yeah, I was gonna, excuse me. I was gonna bring up there in the leadership development space, as we're crafting leaderships, developing them. Amazon, I think, is laying off 14,000 people this year. Since Iger came back to Disney, I think they've killed 8,000 plus jobs. In the development, in your role in leadership, what does it, when there's fewer and fewer people to lead, and like, what does the future look like in leadership development?
Boy, that's a great question. Even in the microcosm of Disney, when I was there for 10 years, we went through several rifts in the workforce at Disney. And the pendulum always swings way too far in one direction. And then it tries to center, but it swings back in the other direction. I think we're seeing this right now. We're seeing the pendulum swing back because COVID, and the post-COVID, especially, the pendulum swung way in one way to restaffing. And now there's some correction in the market coming back. It's about leading differently. All the great leaders that you've worked with in the past, part of the aspect of them being your leaders, their flexibilities, they're able to pivot. They're able to really assess the situation and move forward. And right now we're in that part, right? LinkedIn is a bloodbath, or a green bloodbath. Banners up there, right? And then for people in my age group, I read a figure. It's like 1 in every 5 of our age has experienced within the last year and a half some sort of job interruption. And
20%.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I think as a leader, I think we need to make sure that we're connecting back with the people, because that ultimately is where it's at. When you talk about all this RTW that's going on, the return to work, and people are thinking that's an affront to who they are. And, I'm not going to get into all that stuff, but what it does though, Jake, I think is it with all the technology, the humanity piece just fizzles. And if you are, as this human being, reduced to just input into a system, that will be replaced by AI. That will.
Yep.
And so we need to make sure that we're leveraging that human before the T1000 comes over and takes over humanity. We need to make sure that we've established the importance of connection, of relationships, or all we're going to be doing is just sitting in a 4x4 cubicle for the rest of our life, looking at a screen and hoping we don't get replaced by the next iteration of AI.
But there is a cooperation here, right? I mean, as you're saying that, and I'm thinking about Amazon automating. I'm thinking about everybody automating. We're going to replace bankers. We're going to replace everybody who has a mundane digital job here in the next few years. And it seems to me like there's a cooperation between, let's say, the workforce and the leadership that operates those businesses, to suggest that, well, let's say on one hand, you have the workforce that is, they're hiding around in little corners and they're talking trash about their boss and they're trying to figure out how to unionize and they're going to say, screw the man and we're going to rise up and we're going to take this over. And in doing so, they're basically organizing their own demise because the sooner they do that, the quicker the leadership at the top wants to automate everything. If they can figure out, if the workforce can figure out where that cooperation is, that, I mean, their longevity, I mean, we saw that with Hostess. I don't know if you remember several years ago, the people at Hostess decided they wanted to try to unionize. They passed it. I think they actually did get to unionize. And then Hostess declared bankruptcy. And then 6 months later, reopened as something else.
There are ways around it, the
Yeah.
creativity, I think, and it's a really good question, Jake. One of the things that I've always imparted to my kids and applaud when I hear this is the world doesn't owe you a living.
Right. That's right.
Disney sang about it, Goofy sang about it back in the 1940s, right? The world does not owe you a living. And when you think, when you have an inkling of an idea that you deserve a job or it is your right to a job, I have some fundamental disagreements with that.
Mm.
And I think you're absolutely right. I think if as the, and I hate to say this, but as the window of opportunity potentially closes because of the pressure of AI around that, you need to be exemplary. You need to bring your best game every single day. I was just talking to somebody this morning that says, so I had a guy come in for an interview and he was 10 minutes late for his interview. He took a call while he was in the interview.
Stop that. The interview's over.
Excused himself. So he walked out of the room to take the call.
Keep walking.
And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Or I had, being in the hospitality business, I had stories of my resort managers telling me that they had an interview with somebody for a guest service, like a front desk position. And they said, well, I only work weekdays from 8 to 4. And like, it's a 24-hour day. What?
Yeah.
So I think you're correct. I think you need to find that equilibrium point, and there does need to be a meeting the minds. But the way I hear some workforce people talk now, they're taking a passive approach and waiting for the company to go to them. And like you said, in the Hostess situation, it's going to go. So I think CEOs and businesses need to understand that if they call their employees their greatest asset, they need to be treated like their greatest asset.
Yeah.
Which often they're not. And two, your workforce needs to need to bring their A game every single day, because there's nothing in the Constitution that says you're guaranteed a job.
Well, no, and I'll add to that because I think there's some sense of entitlement. I think we alluded to, if we make leadership of these companies the enemy and we decide that we're going to do whatever, this today is it's much different on some levels, but not as different as we would think in regards to what we used to do in the hunting gathering phase of life, right? Like you said, you're not guaranteed an income, you're not guaranteed a job, you're not entitled to it. Just like they weren't entitled to meat unless they caught it.
Yeah.
Right. They weren't entitled to a fish unless they were skilled and they caught it. In the same sense, we're still waking up every day and we're going out, we're hunting for our food. We're just not hunting for the food itself. And I think people are going to get really lost. And then on the other side of this, look, we got people like Gary Vaynerchuk, whom I'm sure you're familiar with.
Gary V.
Yeah, who's made very clear as a CEO that he works for his employees. Right. And you've kind of alluded to this, to certain things too. During a recent interview, you basically stated the same idea. What are new managers or leaders? Because I think you discuss on some level the idea of, are you a leader or are you, based in like management, like as a hierarchy? Do people have to listen to you because your title is manager, or are you a real leader? I think, but you mentioned, what do new leaders, what are they missing as they step into the role for the first time today?
I like using the phrase "new leader syndrome." I did a video on this recently, and it's about how, especially if you're promoted up from the rank and file, you get up to a particular level, and you completely forget where you came from. And to give you some context, I used to direct a middle school drama program. And one of the things I worked with, wonderful experience. I did that for 10 years. And one of the greatest experiences with these kids is they're still in that formation trying to figure out who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I constantly drilled into their head is never forget where you came from. Because at one, you might be the lead in the show in your 8th grade year, but you were a shrub in your 6th grade year. And you remember how you were treated, how you felt. And I said, with the crew and the chorus and things like that in your show, I said, so when you're a lead, they're going to look up to you. And if you treat them, it's have to really have an appreciation where you came from. New leaders, when they get into position and they got a bigger paycheck, maybe they get a name on their door or an office or something like that.
Yeah, they got a cool title and everything.
Keys to the executive washroom.
Ooh.
And all of a sudden they think that their world might be bigger. And that means because their world and responsibility is bigger, it's more important and more impactful than the scope of your frontline employees that are working with you. But that's not the case.
Right.
Because the scope that your frontline folks have is just as impactful, just as frustrating, just as demoralizing as you might face in your bigger world. Just because you're operating at a higher plane does not make your problems and your frustrations more important. And that's where people forget. And a lot of times the concept of my next book is working on really creating some awareness for higher up executives because they get too far from the hamburger.
Yeah.
As they say in food and beverage, right? So when they get into those positions, they sometimes all they look is spreadsheets and they forget that people are responsible for those numbers. And that's where the disconnect is. Long answer to your short question is our leaders have to understand that especially the Gen Zs are coming to the workplace place. Pay is not in the top 5 things they look for. I don't even think it's in the top 10. One is looking after my well-being, having a place for me, making me feel welcome, make me feel a part of that's all the soft skill stuff. That's not the stuff that our fathers dealt with in the workplace. It is, we pivot and we have to make sure that they feel holistically involved in it. And that means you can't ignore their perspectives. And that's a big part of that, finding that equilibrium point.
Yeah. I think there's a tool company called Hilti. High-end German tool company, great company, makes great tools. This podcast is not sponsored by Hilti, but if I needed a garage full of tools, those are the tools that I would have, right? So they have a saying that it takes 2 years for anybody to drink the Kool-Aid. It's like, you come there and you're a person just looking for a job, looking for a paycheck, looking for some way to pay your bills. It takes you 2 years to become a healthy person. Does that work like that in hospitality, or is it just indigenous to tools?
Jake, we don't have the luxury for that. And I had this conversation with a senior leader a while ago that we were developing an internship program. And she was like, I want these people to be with us for 20 years. And I'm like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Unlike our parents, where you got your gold watch at 40 years, if they're there 5 years, that's a gold watch.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's loyal. That is a lifetime for somebody under age of 35 working for a company for 5 years. Yeah. And if you get, that's as good as gold. So here's the problem. Jake. If the ramp up time is 2 years, there's a good chance you're going to lose that employee before the 2 year period of time. And we know turnover is expensive. Knowledge loss is, damage to business knowledge loss and experience loss is costly to a business. So we need to figure out a way to ramp up that enculturization quicker, because we want that not at 2 years, 6 months, if you're going to get any type of tenure and productivity out of that person.
6 months. How do you get somebody from motorcycle gang to all in on craft leadership culture in 6 months? That's
transformational leadership. We have to think differently. We have to make sure that for culture to work in an organization, it has to be threaded. It has to permeate every aspect of that organization.
Hmm.
And a lot of times when I work with organizations, or even the organizations I was in, there were gaps. The CEO would say something, and then it would get down to an SVP, and the SVP would say something, and then there would be like this gap, and they talk a big, they would look like they talk a big game, but the reality in the ground wasn't there. Working with an organization that wants to work on their sales numbers, and I looked at some of the feedback I saw on Glassdoor. I'm like, well, you have some more fundamental problems than just people not knowing how to sell, and they just don't feel comfortable, right?
Yeah.
So if you are a leader of an organization and you have people, you need to make sure that what you are saying, you are living, and your people are bought into it and are living it day to day. Because any disconnect in that circuit, that's why it takes 2 years. Because it doesn't permeate. It's not pervasive in an organization. When you walk into an organization, luckily the last one I had before the acquisition that I was at, people immediately felt the difference. Immediately felt the difference from once they came, right?
Yeah.
That's essential. And I would host new leader kind of get-togethers and things like that. And people would say, no matter what part of the business, no matter who I was talking to, I felt it. And that created powerful connections.
Leadership makes or breaks an organization for sure.
Hands down.
Most people, if they're making a lateral move, and in at least in my home services business, we do termites and pest control. And if somebody's coming here from another company to do this nearly the same exact thing, albeit a little different and a little better, but I'm biased. It's a lateral move to them psychologically, right? So why are you going from there to here to make nearly the same amount of money and do the same job? It's a leadership. Most of it's leadership. They're like they won't say this. The mature ones won't say this, but they'll say, I won't say anything bad about the company. Let's just say that we're not a good fit. They're not going to say, well, my boss is a jerk and he keeps screwing me over on pay. They're not going to go, well, some of them do that, but that's usually the
not recommended.
It's not recommended. It's not don't come into the office and crap all over the boss that you currently have. That's not good for him.
It's no bueno.
Well, it's like, and you said at some point, I think you said on your blog or somewhere, said you work on helping people get their grit together.
I do. And it's literally what I was going to follow up with that comment on is working with leaders. The first place you have to start, Jake, is in that level of accountability and in that authenticity and being able to turn the mirror on themselves. Because if you've got a leader that doesn't think they stink, you can throw all the darts in the world at them. Nothing's going to stick.
Yeah.
Right. So I created the Embrace the Grit mindset, which stands for get over yourself, reassess with honesty, invest in improvement, and treasure the lessons and growth. I start there always. And I start there because I need to understand where you are, because I might have to break you down a little bit to get to that level of uncomfortability that will help you learn. If you've ever finished a piece of furniture, the last thing you do before you put the final varnish coat on is you rough it up with sandpaper. And that's kind of what I like to do with leaders, is rough them up a little bit with this kind of straightforward talk to really understand, okay, if you are serious about investing in improvement and you are serious about getting better, which leads to better numbers, better leadership culture and organization, we got to start with you. And you have to be willing to say, yeah, I need help, or this needs fixing. If you can't get there with me, it's a waste of time.
I was going to ask you about that sandpaper analogy, because I saw it on your website that's like two leaders. You're going to go into a place, let's say somebody needs help with at an organization. I need help with my leadership, developing my team, developing my own character, my abilities, whatever. The sandpaper is the going in and kind of just roughing things up and figuring out what's broken kind of step.
Absolutely. You need to be able to have that straight talk. CEOs and executives, they like, just give me the facts. Well, let me give you the facts.
Let me give you the facts. You're a mess.
You're a mess. You're not wrong, right? Because if a leader says, hey, I've got a couple of leaders on my team that's not performing well, you better darn well believe I'm going to be looking at the leader that called me too, to say, okay, if they're not performing, what are you not doing? Because I want to make sure that we look at all aspects. And as you just said earlier, and I completely 100% agree with you, that leadership is the reason why people leave organizations. And if you're having challenges with them, I will always say, if I'm coaching a leader and they have a problem with somebody, I said, what did you do wrong? What did you do that or should have done or should have not have done? Because, you again, if we fix the behavior of those direct reports, but the nucleus of the problem still stays, it's going to come back.
For sure. Yeah, behaviors are the lowest, probably one of the lowest levels at which you can change somebody that'll actually get lasting change. Right? Unless you affect their core beliefs or who they perceive that they are, they won't get. You can't perform beyond how you see yourself conceptually. You can pretend, that's fine. I mean, and which part of the grit framework do most people pretend that they're good at, but they're just absolutely full of it?
The assessment that I created is not academically proven. It's based on just my experience working with individuals. And it tends to be pretty accurate. And where I see people really struggle is not in the get over yourself. It's either in the reassess with honesty or the invest in improvement. What that means is people generally will hear the feedback, all right, versus fighting. The amygdala is in control, and they'll at least get the feedback in. They won't fight that, but they won't see any validity or truth in the feedback. And regardless if you don't like what's being said about you or about your work, there's always a kernel of truth in every piece of feedback you've ever received. Now, do you have the wherewithal to pull aside all the crap and find out what that kernel of truth is? Because opinions are not made in a vacuum.
Right.
They are made because something was a catalyst to that other individual and how they view you. And so that was the big one. They don't necessarily, maybe they don't see that, or they have great scores in those first two categories, but their invest is like 20 points lower.
Yeah.
And it's either because, well, it's who I am. It's the way it's going to be. It's not worth investing in it. And there's this excitement just drops when they realize, oh, this might become work. They don't invest in it. So I helped string all through all those things to make sure that, yeah, if you see an opportunity, let's get to it. It's supposed to be hard. If it was easy, everybody would do it. Yeah. But like quotes like even Socrates said, the wise man is the one that knows nothing. But then you got to do something about it. Great point. So I think probably those two, the reassess and the investor, are what I normally see lower on that.
Yeah.
And nobody's I've not got any answers that I'm totally like, yeah, whatever, which is great, because evidently the questions I'm asking really kind of opens up the doors for things.
Yeah, well, that's important. I mean, the best way that you can make your diagnostic tools is to gain access to whatever their beliefs. I mean, and grit seems to do just that. What's the grittiest thing you've done in your own leadership journey? Something that absolutely sucked while it was happening, but changed you forever.
I have the perfect year. So at Walt Disney World is where I worked for 10 years. I was in various management positions, and they move you every 2 years, right? So you never do the same job more than 2 years. You're always rotating around.
Yeah.
And it came up for my time to move, and I said, all right, I will go anywhere but this place. Guess where I got sent? That place. I spent it was part of Epcot, and I was managing attractions at that time. And in the moment, Jake, it was probably one of the worst professional experiences I have had.
Oh yeah.
In my 5+ years of hospitality. I was chewed up and I was spit out.
Epcot, man.
All over the place. And it's supposed to be the happiest place on earth. Well, if you're managing it, that's not always the case.
If you're visiting.
I got a smile on my face and I'll help you, but inside I'm dying.
Yeah.
But in the moment, it was hell. It was rough.
Yeah.
But looking back, it was one of the most transformative experiences that I had as a leader.
Yeah, you can't, you're not going to transform as a leader if you avoid suffering. Suffering and failure is one of the, those are the best teachers. It's like,
Oh, I wrote a blog and the title was All Great Managers Were Once Broken,
for sure.
because you take that experience and you learn from it, you grow from it. You are an amalgamation of every great leader that you've ever worked for, but you also jettison all the crap that you got from the bad leadership. And
Yep.
if you really hit rock bottom as a leader because of what's going on and your naivete as a leader in that situation, how do you absolutely grow for it?
Yeah, well, and there's some sense where, there's leaders that are absolutely failing miserably. They're hating their role, they're hating everything about the life that it's what it's doing to them, and they don't have a support system around them. That's where like craft leadership comes in handy, because they can come in and they go, "Hey man, I want to be a good leader. Like I want to be able to lead people. I want to be able to do my job well. I certainly don't want to cap myself out at warehouse level, work until I'm 100 years old. I want to progress and learn how to do this. And some people don't have that opportunity because there's no mentors around. So that's where companies like yours come in handy.
Yeah, again, I've been a big evangelist for mentorship for quite some time. I've been
Hmm.
blessed to have mentors and blessed to have mentees, and that was really one of the things behind the Great Slapping, the book, was I think we're losing that. We're
Hmm.
losing that desire of the experienced to have patience, learn new technology, to be able to pass knowledge on to the younger generation, and the younger generation not having patience with the old folks to learn, and a lot of times a little sensitive to feedback. That feedback is taken as an attack versus an investment in their growth.
Yeah.
So, if we continue on those diverging paths, what happens to mentorship? I think what you said in that example you gave is a pure definition on why mentorship is so important.
Hmm.
Where, again, you can get all the answers from ChatGPT, but you're not going to get all the context and all the other things that experienced mentor will share with you on how to get through those situations.
Yeah, there's something to be said for coming alongside or being alongside another person who has gone through the pain, who knows, who's gone through it. And while you're going through it, yeah, it sucks. And sometimes it feels like it's never going to end, right? Like I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I don't see how this benefits me. I don't get it. But then somebody comes along who's been there, done that, and goes, "Hey man, if you just put your head down, go for it, do your best." And like you slap them a bit. You have the Great Slapping book, which is like, this is the part of what we lost. I think you mentioned it, is part of what we lost is the ability to, well, kind of the ability to be slapped, right? Like our generation, the generation that came before us, everybody was talking to those guys like, get your act together.
You weren't just slap with a hand; you had a belt.
Yeah, belt or a switch from the tree. Your mom made you go, and that was the worst part. She made you go and get your own switch.
Oh,
Like,
see, I
dude,
grew up
why
in
am
an
I gonna
Italian household. Mine was a polenta paddle. Those get thick.
a polenta paddle?
Oh man!
Yeah,
But you learn. That's for sure. You learn not to do that.
it's discipline. And, I think for the young guys listening to this, if you can subject yourself under other leadership or humble yourself enough to be slapped, metaphorically speaking,
Hmm.
maybe literally, let's be honest, some of you guys need to be slapped literally. But if you can take it and find a good mentor, I mean, look, that's going to coaching, mentoring, anywhere you feel like you're not excelling is well worth whatever investment you're going to put into it. It does it does not even matter what the cost is. If it saves you 5 years or 2 years or whatever in developmental pain to pay a coach to take you through it, then that's exactly what you should do. Is it? Tell me about the Great Slapping Book. Is that
That was
exactly what it sounds like? You just
it is. It's exactly that proverbial jolt of reality where somebody sees more in you and your potential than you see in yourself,
Mhm.
or unwilling or unable to see in yourself. And they basically shake you by the shoulders and a proverbial slap and say, quit doing that
Yeah.
because you are better. You need to do this. You need to start doing this. And I in the book, I tell a lot of stories, and a lot of them were the slaps that I took
Yeah.
as a leader, as a young person, kind of growing up in the professional world. And if we don't create that jolt of reality, people will live in an alternate reality. And eventually that's going to come face to face with an organization or a leader where you start hitting walls, and that's not going to be helpful.
Yeah.
And just the knowledge that somebody believes in you and wants to invest in you, and because they see so much more than you see in yourself, there is nothing better than that experience. You know, I live by a lot of quotes, and one of the ones I like is happiness is planting a seed of a tree whose shade you will never enjoy. And
Uh,
mentors do that.
yeah.
They invest in you. They don't expect payoff. It's not about them. The ROI is just in giving you the potential to be who you truly could be and what you truly can do.
Yeah. Well, you say mentorship needs to be more direct. So how directly are you talking? Are you talking like you're fat and ugly direct, or is there something?
Well, if that, here's the tough people. I mean, it might rub some folks the wrong way, but if that is what needs to happen, that's what needs to happen. If you're driving off a cliff from a health perspective, sometimes your parents might tell you this, the doctor might tell you this, but it might take that one person that's not connected in those ways to tell you and go, you may want to watch this. You may want to do
Mhm.
something about it. Sometimes that wakes it up. I don't know, Jake, are you a parent?
Yeah. Mhm.
I am. So how many times have you told your kids something and they totally ignore you, but then they said, oh, but this person at school told me I should do this. And you're like,
Yeah.
duh, right? It is it's a tough responsibility to take on mentorship.
Yeah.
And it's not something that people should enter into lightly, because you may be called on the carpet to have those types of conversations. As a
Yep.
mentor, you need to be comfortable giving the slapping as a true, authentic person wanting to improve to receive them.
Yeah. And I think if they know your heart, if they know that you genuinely care,
Bingo.
then then you can say pretty much anything you want. As long as it's in love, right? It's in respect.
Absolutely.
Then if they know they can take it. What do you think is you ever watch The Office?
I have, yes.
Yeah, so I think Michael is the
Michael
leader,
Scott.
right? Michael Scott. What phase of leadership is he in that show where he's trying to be everybody's friend and he can't?
He should have been slapped decades.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that really has shaped me as a leader, Jake, is working in the hospitality industry for so long. I mean, literally the why of you being a hospitality person is not just the ability, but the desire to put other people's needs ahead of your own.
Hmm.
I mean, that's the definition of hospitality.
Yeah.
You're working when somebody else is playing. Your family's home on the holidays when you're out working.
Yeah.
Um, apply that to leadership. Apply that when you become a leader, it is not about you. We talked about the trappings of titles and all the other stuff that comes with a position or a promotion.
Hmm.
But ultimately, you are about, you talk about Gary Vee, you are about your people. You are there to serve your team. If you have an inkling that relationship is the other way around, you will only be as successful as that ego allows you to be.
Oh yeah. Yeah, well said. I mean, that's like, yeah, well said. You've been in rooms with top execs.
Hmm?
What's something no one wants to admit about being at the top?
I think and I'm taking kind of an amalgamated kind of answer to this, so that the ones that I've experienced is one, their knowledge. I've worked with leaders that are the smartest person in the room.
Mhm.
And what Melissa Mara said, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. there is a reason why they got to that position in the C-suite, is because they are quite talented in their field. They are quite smart. But when you run into that dead end in terms of I'm here and I don't need to learn anymore, that's when you run into patterns of behavior. That's when you run into, they might be able to pivot from and I'm speaking strictly from a people and culture standpoint. They might be able to pivot from a business decision, but when it comes to people and culture, for some reason, it's not there, right? And so again, I would go back to the kind of the embrace the grit model, and to ensure that even in the C-suite, if you get called in by the CEO to help work with the board, how open are they to feedback? How open are they to saying that you might not be the smartest person in the room? And if you're in that position sitting on a seat of ego, I can't help you. We got to start at a more foundational level.
Yeah. It's hard to admit at the top when sometimes the guys that I've talked to are like, it's hard to admit when you're not the smartest one in the room.
Oh, hands down, especially if you built a business. You built a business.
Yeah.
Right. I've talked to CEOs that had built this business from the ground up. They earned everything they've got.
Yeah.
But when you reach it, I think from a learning perspective, there's no such thing as an apex. You might have a landing, but there's no apex. And if you feel you're at the apex, and the fact that you have a successful business is validation that you've reached your potential, that's a slapping. That
is a slapping. So they can get your book, The Great Slapping Book, is on Amazon now.
Yep.
Right.
You got it on Barnes & Noble online. It's a paperback and ebook.
Cool. Where can people connect with you now? LinkedIn, Instagram?
Absolutely. LinkedIn under Yogi Mueller. I'm also, my website is craftleadership.net. You can reach out to me. In fact, if you go there's an opportunity for you to get a free grit index assessment. Nice. If you want to take that, I'd love to share that information with you. You can also find Craft Leadership on YouTube, where I have my leadership nugget videos for quick hit micro learning pieces, cool. And also on Instagram, Craft Leadership LLC.
Yeah, we'll put all those links in the show notes for everybody to access. You guys got to go get the book as soon as you can, The Great Slapping Book. That's going to teach you a lot about leadership and how to manage your own psyche along the way too. I mean, leadership is still going to be an ongoing thing that we do in society. You're going to either lead at your business or lead in your home. And you should learn the skills necessary to do so. I appreciate you, Yogi, for coming on, man. I look forward to a time when we can talk again.
Jay, it was an absolute pleasure. Really enjoyed the conversation and you challenging me and slapping me around a little bit this morning. I enjoyed that.
Well, not quite, but yeah, I appreciate
if you enjoyed this
being
show,
here, man, and
make
I look
sure to
forward to seeing you again soon.
And leave a review. For more information about Jake, log on to jakegiffin.com and find him on all social media platforms. Until next time, peace and power be yours.